Welcome to Bible Story Time. I am so glad you're here. We've got some great things to do today. I wonder if any of you ever go outside and just take a walk and explore nature with mom or dad, grandma or grandpa, a big brother or big sister, or maybe even by yourself in your yard. There's so many cool things to find. Butterflies and birds and snakes and all kinds of trees and flowers and leaves and grass. There are so many wonderful things that God has created. One of the really cool things God created was animals. And sometimes we find things that tell us about animals that have been there. I was out in my yard with my dog, and I live out in the woods, and so we have a lot of space for him to kind of explore. And he was exploring, and look at what he found. This is such a cool thing. He found what looks to be the skull of an animal that used to live here. Isn't that so fascinating? If you look very closely, you can even see the animal's teeth. I think that is so cool that he found that. And if we want to do some digging and some research, we can kind of figure out, what kind of animal this might have been and where this might have come from. It's always really cool to think about those things. The thing that got me was the teeth on this animal, though, I have to tell you. I was a little scared thinking that an animal like this, with teeth like this, may have been roaming around in my neighborhood at some point. I'm sure glad I didn't meet up with it. Sometimes wild animals are so cool, like little snakes and little mice and owls and all kinds of other things, turkeys and deer. But some animals are kind of scary. Things like a bear or a coyote or a wolf, that can be kind of scary. And so I don't think I'd want to meet up with whatever animal this might have been. It looks like it could have given you a really nasty bite, but it didn't, because this is all that was left of it. In today's story that I'm going to share with you today, we're going to meet Daniel. And Daniel is living in a place called Babylon, and it's been taken over by another country. And there are some rules in that country that the king makes that Daniel doesn't obey. And the punishment for that is getting thrown into a den of wild lions who are very hungry. Can you imagine? Daniel must have been so scared. I want to share that story with you right now so that we can find out what happened to Daniel and see how God may protect him. All right, we're ready for this very exciting story. But first, we have to find out exactly how our main character got to where he was. So we're going to read a little bit more about Daniel and about how he ended up where he did in our story. So we're going to start with the Israelite people, God's people, being captured. Oh no! If you remember back to Elijah, you'll remember that the people of Israel were worshiping other gods. We're going to hear about that too. Over and over, God had warned his people not to worship idols or other gods. But they kept right on doing what God had told them not to. How sad he must have felt. So finally, God let an enemy capture his people and take them from the land he'd given them. They were taken far, far away to a place called Babylon. It was a very sad day. But then what happens? Lots of things happen. And then we get to the writing on the wall. Daniel was one of God's people who was a slave in Babylon. One night, the new king of Babylon gave a banquet, a big party, and suddenly a hand appeared and began writing on the wall something that no one could read. Well, that's kind of scary. The king asked Daniel to come and tell him what it meant. Daniel said it meant that God was angry with the king, and the kingdom of Babylon would be divided and given to two other countries, the Medes and the Persians. Wow, God's people are going through a lot, aren't they? Well, now Daniel is going to disobey the king. Daniel prayed 3 times every day to God, the one true God. some men in the new kingdom of the Medes and the Persians wanted to get rid of Daniel. So they had the new king make a rule that people could only pray to the king. If someone broke that rule, he would be thrown into the lion's den. Real lions. But Daniel went to his house and got down on his knees and prayed to God just as he had always done. But we see someone noticing him, don't we? The men caught Daniel praying to God and told the king. The king was sad, that's King Darius, because he liked Daniel. But the king couldn't change the law. So Daniel was thrown into a den of hungry lions. And we see all the bones from their other meals on the floor of their den. What's going to happen? Wait. God sent an angel to close the mouths of the lions so they couldn't bite or hurt Daniel at all. In the morning, the king, who hadn't slept all night, came to see if God, the one true God, had saved Daniel. And sure enough, Daniel was just fine. What an amazing way for God to show his power and his might and his great love for his people who love him. Wasn't that an amazing story? I think it's so awesome how God protected Daniel. And I think King Darius thought it was pretty awesome too, because at the end, he loved God. He was amazed by God. Sometimes that's what it takes. I thought our Bible treasure could be something that King Darius said in the very end of the story, which is so true about our amazing God. Let's learn together Daniel 6, verse 27. This is King Darius, and he's talking about God. And he says he rescues and he saves. He performs signs and wonders in the heavens and on the earth. He has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions. Wow. And he'll rescue us too. I think that's amazing. Thanks for coming today, for learning a little bit about nature and all of the animals that are out there, learning about how God protected Daniel, and learning about what difference that made to the king, and how the king decided that the one true God was the one true God. And he did that because he saw a miracle. He saw how God protects and saves, and that's what we learned in our Bible treasure. This week, take some time to go out into your yard or to a local park. Do some exploring and some nature study. See what you can find. See what interests you and learn more about it. And let me know what you learn. It's always good to be outside and to enjoy the beautiful weather we have. I can't wait to see you next week for another great story.